7 evil dragons, but can they squeeze out a single interesting character? Let's find out! Hey everyone, welcome to Dragon Ball Dissection December, the yearly month-long marathon of new Dragon Ball Dissection episodes. There's a DVD on the 4th, the 11th, the 18th, Christmas Day, and New Year's Eve, with $10 and up patrons getting each episode a week early. So when you're seeing this one, they're already seeing the next one. And yeah, I know last year the DVD December dates happened to line up on our usual Monday slots, but that's not how it usually is. Looks like this year is a Wednesday. And who doesn't love Wednesdays? Last time I was talking about the twins, San Shenlong and Su Shenlong, and how their shtick just doesn't work for me. And we're here to talk about it again! Last time, though, I approached it from the angle of the show setting up an honor-dishonor dichotomy, but ended up making the dragons largely the same, except for having San be a little more of a creepy dick about it. But now it's time to pivot away from the honor perspective and dive right into why their characters don't work. Ooh, I've been looking forward to this one. Frankly, characterization is the core issue here, not just for these two dragons, but for all of them. If these evil dragons had been written with distinct characters, these ideas of honor and dishonor might have fallen into place. But since there isn't, it doesn't. Because honestly, I love the idea of Su Shenlong. I love the idea that there is an evil dragon who doesn't fit the stereotypical mold, who might not want the same things as his peers. I'm also open to him falling into the tried and true method of Dragon Ball, wherein a villain redeems himself. Either of those could lead to a fantastic story. They seem to naturally lead to an ethical dilemma, given that the heroes are supposed to defeat all the evil dragons in order to save the world. But that's not the story we get. Instead, we get a dragon who is a serious, dangerous fighter, and in between episodes suddenly becomes this whiny pushover who's on Goku's side for no reason. Or, if you want to be really generous, because San is a bit of a dick to him. Yes, I did push back last time on Su Shenlong's philosophy against killing women and children. I feel like I shouldn't have to say this, but while I don't particularly care for women being infantilized by being placed in the same category as children, I actually agree quite strongly with the idea of not killing people. And in case you missed it, that certainly includes women and children. Yeah, radical concept, I know. It's why I keep butting heads with this guy. In the case of Dragon Ball, that means I prioritize actions that spare the lives of non-combatants, innocent civilians who aren't choosing or aren't equipped to engage in the fighting so prevalent in this franchise. It's not a bad thing that Su lives by this code. It's only a bad thing in that I will reach the end of this series without ever understanding why he cares. Let me explain what I mean. Remember Namu, that tournament contestant a long time ago who just wants the prize money so he can buy water for his dying village? He too struggles to fight women, struggles to appreciate a cute coordinated bra and panty set that can really pull an entire outfit together. Naturally, his first match is against Lanfan, a woman who will take advantage of that character trait to such a degree that she is literally named after lingerie. But see, unlike with Su Shenlong, I feel as though I understand Namu. The series conveys that he is very traditional, very conservative, comes from a culture that espouses those values. It also creates in him a dilemma he has to overcome. What value does he prioritize in this moment? Saving his village or striking a woman? That's a story. And it's a story in which the characters drive the action. Now, you might rightly point out that the story does not share a lot of Namu's culture with us, and that I am, to some extent, reading between the lines as to where his mindset comes from. Granted, that's a good thing. Stories can convey ideas without sitting us down and explaining them to us for episode after episode. In fact, it's usually better to do it this way when you can get away with it. It's a lesson that I wish Dragon Ball Daima would hurry up and learn. And I'm writing this on Halloween, so maybe by now it has. By contrast, Su Shenlong has no culture and no life experience, but he inexplicably espouses personal convictions like refusing to kill specifically women and children. Where does that even come from? And then there's San Xinglong. Goku offers him mercy. San throws it back in his face. Literally. And that is classic for a villain to get hoisted by his own petard. It's so satisfying to see the hero finish off the villain now that the boring shackles of life-sparing pity have been removed, so that the hero can kill with nary a concern about morality. But it's a surface-level satisfaction if you don't really understand the villain. I'm sure I'm not alone, but when I see this play out, the first character I think of is Freeza, who goes out in much the same way. And look, you know I've lobbed my criticisms at that finale as well, particularly the aspect that sees Goku's ki suddenly able to cure the most pernicious effects of missing half of one's body. Remember that if P is stored in the balls, ki is stored in the legs, and apparently literally nothing else of any importance. But despite that issue, I have to give it credit. When Freeza uses that gifted ki to attack Goku one last time, it is shocking, but inevitable. And it's inevitable because it's true to Frieza's character. Freeza considers himself the strongest being in existence, and he has the experience and reputation to back that up. He's even feared by the gods. Now that sense of superiority has been upended, and upended by a Saiyan of all people, a member of the race Freeza both dominates and fears. The image of a Saiyan pitying him after defeating him is such a shattering of his own identity that throwing away his life on a last-ditch attempt to assert his superiority is truly the only action he is capable of. Characters drive the story. Meanwhile, San Xinglong betrays Goku at the last minute because he's evil, I guess. Oh, and the narrator says he'll do anything to win, so hey, there you go. The character is not driving the story is dictating the actions of the character because the story needs Goku to kill him. See, this is where the evil dragons face an inherent disadvantage. I can extrapolate Namu's and Frieza's actions based on their personal histories because they are implied to have them. That's a difficult act to pull off when the antagonists are magically created by wish-granting orbs and have only been on Earth for a couple of days. In fact, I'd say that Dragon Ball in general has had a real problem relying on manufactured villains. Up to this point, every main villain after Frieza has been created by some other force in order to antagonize the heroes, rather than existing as people with their own motivations that happen to bring them into conflict with the heroes. I think this method is used because it's an easy shortcut to introduce new punching obstacles. Obstacles that don't have to be explained or motivated beyond, someone made them do that. And then even those someones are discarded early on because, who cares about exploring their motives? But when you skip over that whole motivation thing, you struggle to create compelling characters. Cell becomes a directionless bore, Super Number 17 is complete dead air, Baby is decent. Majin Buu manages to be a genuinely compelling character because Toriyama explores through him what kind of identity a manufactured villain might develop. Buu lives in the world long enough to question the morals he was instilled with and then start to develop his own. But beyond that, I struggle to think of villains that match up to the likes of Vegeta and Freeza. As much as Dragon Ball fans like to laugh at me for prioritizing the story and characters, there's a reason why these two are so popular. It's because we care about them. And we care about them because we have an idea of who they are. Now, all characters are manufactured insofar as they don't exist outside of what a writer writes for them. They don't have a real history. They don't have inner lives. They don't have a past. As far as the real creation of the character, Vegeta begins right here. That's the start of his existence. But through storytelling, the author creates an identity, creates a fictional history. We know he was once a child. We know he was a prince. We know he was forced to work for Frieza. How we see him interact with Zarbon and Dodoria, what they say to each other, how they treat each other, imply a long history. a long relationship even if we don't see it. Even though we know how awful a person he is, that context makes it satisfying when Vegeta turns the tables on them. When we see Vegeta slaughter a village of helpless elders and children to get a Dragon Ball, it's horrific, but we understand his motivations. All of these things inform how we perceive the character, and they're why he leaves an impression on us. Now, I'm not saying that a mindless killing machine can't be a good villain. I'm immediately thinking of the Terminator. That's a story about a singularly focused, manufactured villain, and all of the drama and characterization are centered on how the protagonists react to said villain. That is certainly a valid and effective direction to go. I also think it's telling that its sequel, wherein the emotionless robot discovers and explores his humanity, is far and away considered the superior movie. But it's not impossible to tell a good story where the villain is just, a bad guy. In Power Rangers, for example, the monsters du jour usually have no depth or complexity and possess just enough personality to be entertaining. They're not treated as people, just as wisecracking manifestations of evil to be defeated. Even in the realm of 90s American children's television, where killing was usually off the table, there never seemed to be an issue with watching these guys blow up. Those external conflicts are simplified good versus evil. There's no moral dilemma, just bombastic action sequences. Up until now, that's mostly what the evil dragons have been. And I don't know if that's necessarily ideal, but it's potentially workable. Fine, they're minus energy. They're corrupted Dragon Balls, I get it. I prefer something a bit more interesting, but I can get on board. The second you throw in Su Xinglong, however, a dragon who does not fit that mold, you can't just fall back on, they're evil. Now, in a way, it pains me to say this, because I generally like to give a story credit for at least trying to be more than it is. Even if it doesn't succeed, I can appreciate its ambition. I like thinking. I like when a story encourages me to think, and Su Xinglong does that. If Su Xinglong can break the mold, then maybe these villains are more complex than they appear at first glance. If Su Xinglong can have a specific set of moral codes, shouldn't that mean the others are capable of that as well? But if all the others are evil, cackling villains, what makes Su Xinglong different? Why isn't he evil? Why aren't they nuanced? If they're all manifestations of the minus energy, created to destroy the planet, what purpose does it serve for Su Xinglong to be created inherently honorable and thereby undermine their own mission? If Su Xinglong learns to be good, does that not mean the others have the same capacity for reflection and growth, and that it's wrong to be slaughtering them as if they're soulless golems? In GT's attempts to add complexity to one villain, they create a contradiction that reveals how two-dimensional they really are. It opens a huge box of questions that can never be answered. And it's not because the show is being mysterious or deep, it's because it's revealing that there's nothing there, even as it encourages us to think more deeply. Okay, so Su Xinglong won't kill women and children. What does that say about his character? I don't know. Where did he learn that? I don't know. Because he's manufactured, there's really not much I can extrapolate on how he came to be the person I'm looking at now. And because I don't know that, I can't really understand what that rule even means for him, or if it matches who he's supposed to be. That's why I insisted last time that this whole women and children thing is nothing but a platitude. It's there to inform us that he is honorable, not something that arises organically from his character. Think about it. When we're first introduced to him, he has already laid waste to a city. He's burning the place up. It's covered in sand. There's no one in sight. What happened to all the people? They had to have gone somewhere. Maybe they all evacuated like we see with Xinglong's city. But what happens if there are stragglers, or people who refuse to leave, people who put up a fight even though they have no hope of winning? Does Su Xinglong kill all the husbands and fathers in honorable combat, and then just fly all their wives and children to safety somewhere? Or does he fly everybody to safety? Or does he just kill everybody? I don't know. If his primary motivation is to live by a warrior's code and defeat Son Goku, why is he laying waste to this city at all? If his ultimate purpose is to use his powers along with his siblings to destroy the world, which we are told is the case, he's going to end up killing all the women and children despite his code, isn't he? See, doesn't kill women and children can work as a code for a gentleman thief, someone who victimizes others for his own gain, but justifies it by not crossing a certain line. It can't really fit a character who's a harbinger of the apocalypse. Speaking of siblings, I have put off mentioning that San Xinglong and Su Xinglong are unique and that they alone refer to each other as brothers. And, on the surface, that seems to make sense. They're identical. None of the other dragons look like each other. But you give it the slightest bit of thought, and it makes you realize you don't really know the first thing about these people. What does it mean to be brothers in this context? Aren't they all siblings? They're all born from the same set of Dragon Balls, so why is it that only these two share any kind of relationship? Is it just figurative? As in, they saw each other, realized they looked the same, and jokingly decided to call themselves brothers? There is precedent. Goku calls U Xinglong his brother because U was born from a wish to bring Goku to life. It doesn't mean they're siblings in the traditional sense. But that just raises more questions. Do the evil dragons know each other? Have they met? What exactly are we supposed to assume their lives have been like? Have they been contained within their individual Dragon Balls from the moment the wish that made them was granted, isolated from each other? Or did they all live together in some non-corporeal realm and that's how they seem to possibly know each other? Have they been distinct people from the moment their wishes were made? Or did they only gain sentience at the beginning of the arc? The answers to any of those questions would significantly affect how we view the characters. The show answers none of them. And even if it did, I still can't see Su Xinglong making any sense. If Su was literally born yesterday, he would have no culture or experience that influences his honor. If all the dragons had been living with each other and developing personalities, it might explain the adversarial relationship between Su and San, but it would mean Su's only culture from which to learn his values would be a whole bunch of evil guys. I feel like Jim Carrey after Val Kilmer bataranged my brain. There are just too many questions. That's why a lot of people turn to the Dragon Balls themselves. When we're in a drought, we look for water wherever we may find it. And in this, at the very least, I can believe there is some level of intention. Su Xinglong, Su Shinchu, 4-star ball. That's Goku's grandpa. I don't think it's a coincidence that the dragon born from the Dragon Ball that Goku has the closest connection to ends up being the dragon Goku forms the closest relationship to. At the very least, I can believe that's what the writers were going for, and I can even accept that as a storytelling device, despite the logic of it not seeming to carry through anywhere else. Thematic significance is often more important to storytelling than strict adherence to logic. I don't need to understand why Su Shinchu created a good dragon if the story is good enough, or if it doesn't end up creating a pileup of other questions. But there's only so much credit I can give it given, gestures to the rest of this video. But hey, at least it's something. And something is not nothing. And, jeez. I am really struggling to say something nice here, aren't I? You know something? As outside of the norm of Dragon Ball opinions as I sometimes am, I feel like we, you and I, often see eye to eye. Yeah, I'm talking to you right now, you watching the video. Specifically, Steven. Yeah, I see you. Anyway, Steven, I think you generally accept that I make these videos in good faith, that I give you my honest and reasoned opinions, and that I do my best to critique something fairly, even if I feel strongly about it. Heck, I spent a not insignificant period of time 2 videos ago praising a clip show. But I also know that some of you, like you, Marvin, yeah, I know it's you, think that I'm just going out of my way to be as negative as possible, that I just hate everything. But are you unable to see what it is I have to work with here? Something is not nothing. Seriously, I'm trying! I really do want to like this guy and like the idea he brings of a more complex, compassionate villain. But it's also surface level, so grafted on. I feel as though this only works if we, the viewers, write the story for it. Hold on to that thought because we have nearly a whole month ahead of us. For the moment though, I feel as though I've spent enough time in this particular spot. I dare say I've said the first, last, and every word in between that anyone could ever muster for this particular character. The book on Su Xinglong has been written by me. But it's time to move on to the final villain of this piece, Yi Xinglong, and that will be next week. Or it will be right now if you're a $10 or higher patron. And even if you're not, there are reward tiers cheaper than that, like the name in the credits that are awarded to $5 and up, and access to a private Discord community for only $1. Just know that your support is so incredibly appreciated and incredibly needed. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week.